The Arrows Podcast is brought to you by Triumph Protective Coatings, which is a flooring company specializing in concrete polish, epoxy flooring systems, micro cement, and self leveling concrete. They speak Spanish and they offer awesome customer service. And you could reach them on Instagram, Triumph_coatings. Looking them up on Facebook, Triumph Protective Coatings. You can email them, triumphprotectivecoatings@gmail.com. You can call them or text them at 666-436-4702. And if you use promo code ARROWSUP, you get 15% off on your next flooring project. So reach out to them, and they will take care of all your flooring needs. Welcome to the Ears Up Podcast. On this episode, I will talk to you about sports from a different perspective, not just typical sporty talk. Go through the NFL, Week 13, what we're learning, what we learned, what we saw, and some basketball, where we're at in the NBA as of December 1st. Kick it around the pitch, and ended with a conversation about Vini, and he is both the instigator, the victim, and what can he do to help his cause and help highlight it. So here we go. Welcome to the Arrows Up Podcast. I have a full sports pod today on this Monday edition of the pod, Monday morning edition. We had Thanksgiving, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you had a safe one. Hopefully you had plenty of food. This year I felt like I ate less dessert than I did in previous years. I ate a lot, and I got full really fast, which kind of sucked. But it's behind us, and now we're looking ahead to Christmas as December is here. And, man, 2024 is wrapping up. But speaking of wrapping up, it seems like the 49er season is wrapping up as well. Week 13 NFL season. Here's some highlight points. I told you last week the kind of where we're at in the NFL and the trajectory that we may be heading into as the NFL season approaches. I might have been wrong. We might not get a Giants type of run this year, as we just have a lot of good teams with really good records that are just winning. But let's go through it a little bit. The Lions are taking care of business, and they have a giant game versus the Bills coming up in 2 weeks. But they got a giant game versus the Packers. And then they got the Vikings, the last game of the season. And the Vikings need the Lions to lose one of these games. The Vikings, as of now, don't have the tiebreaker versus the Lions because they lost to them on October 20th. And the Lions already beat the Packers once, so they have the Packers this week. And the Lions are slowly creeping up to kind of wrap up the conference if they're able to just handle things. The Eagles are looking great at 10-2. They beat the Ravens today, and now they got Panthers, home versus the Steelers, which is now going to be one of the best games of the year. Or at least anticipated. They got at the Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. So the Eagles' last 4 games are 5 games are fairly easy. The tough one is the Steelers and the Commanders. Um, but Panthers, Cowboys, Giants, 3 winnable games. And if they're able to hold serve and maybe the Lions lose a game or two, the Eagles might have home field advantage throughout. And that's what it's really going to come down to in this division, in this conference, because if you're the Lions or the Vikings, and even the Packers, who are 9-3, you want everybody to come to you. You don't want to go to them. You want everybody to come to you. And so it's going to be an interesting run towards the end of the year, as all these teams have something to play for. In the AFC, we have the same, but with 2 teams, with the Chiefs and Bills. And the Bills, who have the tiebreaker because they beat the Chiefs last week. And the Bills, over the last 5 games, have a fairly easy schedule. At the Rams, and the Rams can be feisty, so that one will be tough. At Detroit, which that game is going to be super hyped up as well. And then Patriots, Jets, Patriots to end the year. So they get 4 of the 5 games that they have left are all winnable. And they're going to need to end the year right. They're going to need to continue this run that they're on, as after their win today, they have won 7 straight. And as I said last week, you don't worry about peaking early. You just want to keep winning. That's the name of the game right now. Now, for the Chiefs who play over the last 5 games, home versus the Chargers next week. They get at the Browns, home versus the Texans, which now is not that much. It doesn't look like that's going to be a difficult game. At the Steelers, at the Broncos. And so the Chiefs themselves have a pretty easy schedule. So it's going to be an interesting chase for the number 1 seed, because if you're Buffalo, if you're Kansas City, and if you're any one of those teams in the NFC, you want to hold serve. You want everybody to come to you. And it's going to be an interesting chase down the stretch, because all these teams will have something to play for if the teams around them keep winning, which should make it a lot of fun. Now, some of the things we saw this week, the Bears had an awful loss. I mean, awful loss on Thursday. Such a bad loss, in fact, that Matt Eberflus didn't make the day. And so it's one of those things that Matt Eberflus just didn't call a timeout when he had one. And they waited, they ran the play. I mean, you saw it. But it was such an awful management of that game that everybody on X was like, he has to go. And it was almost like the pressure that everybody was putting on the Lions, on the Bears, was enough to get Eberflus fired. There was no way he was going to make it out of that game. It was such a horrendous loss, and the Lions escaped because the Bears had an opportunity to win that game. And we saw the Raiders get screwed by the refs in the game against the Chiefs, in a game where I'm not saying there's conspiracy. I'm not saying that the NFL is rigging these games for the Chiefs. I'm not saying that. But the evidence is becoming harder and harder to ignore. That's all I'm going to say about that. I brought this up last week. The Texans, they won today. Are we sure CJ Stroud is good? Still good? Are we sure? Just doesn't look like the same guy anymore. And it's just super, super sad that that's the way it's going. But yeah, I mean, what we learned at the end of this week is the Steelers are for real as they win another one. The Bengals and 49ers have had years from hell, and we'll just have to go into this offseason, reset, reboot, and we just got to pretend, like flush this season down the toilet, pretend it didn't happen, and keep it moving. The Jets are just unlucky, and Aaron Rodgers might be time to retire. Just might be time. And I think those are the lessons of Week 13, where the good teams like the Chiefs and the Lions and the Eagles are winning, and the bad teams that we think are still good are losing, and teams like the Ravens and the Cardinals, who we think are good, are showing themselves to probably be not that good. And that's where we're at after Week 13. Let's talk some basketball. In the NBA, we've had a very fun time chasing the top teams. In the East, we have the Cavs, who are 18-3, playing masterful basketball. That makes me think about those Nets teams that Kenny Atkinson was in charge of a few years ago. Remember those teams, and I think everybody's seen that GIF of the guys dancing and all that. And it makes me wonder that KD, Kyrie, Harden, and like those guys totally tanked a team that was well coached, that had a good culture, and totally tanked it. And Kenny Atkinson is now leading the Cavs, a Cavs team that at the end of the playoffs last year, we thought, well, certainly they're going to have to move one of their guys, because Mitchell and Garland definitely can't play together. They're going to have to move one of those. And it turns out, no, you bring in a good coach who knows what they're doing, and it might be all right. And so we have that. So they're 18-3. They're playing well. And one of the things that has been super interesting is seeing just how dynamic it's been for both of these teams heading into both for this team in comparison to last year. And that is something that, as we've seen, has allowed them to have better offense, have more balance on offense, and also have a good, strong defense. And Jared Allen alongside Evan Mobley, that has been a good pairing, although Evan Mobley doesn't just develop over his career some kind of jump shot, 15, 18 feet. But the Cavs are for real. The Cavs have a real coach and real structure on their team, and they're able to keep up, not just offensively, but defensively with any team in the league. The Celtics are shooting a ridiculous amount of threes this year, and they are super deep. They are super athletic. Porzingis came back this week, and Porzingis just gives them just a different dimension to that team of he just makes them almost unbeatable, especially when you think of them in the 7-game series where it becomes about matchups, and they are a matchup nightmare for anybody in the playoffs. The Magic, who I was bummed when Paolo Banchero went out, because I was like, man, it's over for them. But no, Franz Wagner has been amazing. He's been spectacular ever since Banchero went out. They're 15-7. They're 9-0 at home. They've won 6 straight. the Magic have, they're older, and they have that look in their eye of a team that's gone through some playoffs and has some scar tissue, and they just know how to play together. And I just love what I've seen from them this year. The Knicks have been disappointing, and Carl Anthony has been good for them. It's been a good trade, at least for them. But it seemed like Bridges and Anunoby are redundant on this team. And it might be different. It might change once the playoffs start and you get two wings, and it might change. They just don't have enough shooting on this team, because when it's Anunoby and Bridges and Hart, there's just not enough shooting there. And it's what I know, that they're better technically than they were last year. I just don't know if I believe it. Like, I get it. On paper, they're better, kind of. I just like last year's teams better. The Bucks have been playing a lot better for a while, ever since their start. They've won 6 straight. There was something going around X. I don't know if it's a real thing or not, but supposedly Doc was saying he was going to take it more seriously. I think it's fake. But since that post, and shout out to that guy who made up that post, they're 8-1. So they're 8-1, and they've won 6 straight. And the Bucks look okay now. They have Giannis, who's leading the league in scoring, and Milwaukee's a tough team, because they're a team that if Giannis is healthy, if they have Giannis, I believe that they can do anything. And that's where I'm at with the Bucks. I don't care about Dame. I don't care about any of that. And it's great if Dame is able to play more than one game a week at a high level. It'd be good if they're able to get any contribution from Middleton this season. I wonder if they'll be able to move Lopez or something. But it's a team that, if they have Giannis and Giannis is healthy, I believe they can do anything. We are probably seeing the death of the Heat. The Heat don't have the same fear, the same tenacity. Jimmy Butler is clearly a reduced player, and this Heat team is not good enough for him to kind of just pass the time and turn it on in the playoffs. They're just not that good to withstand that. I was watching their game versus the Hornets this week, and there was a period where he went a long stretch without even shooting the ball. And it just doesn't make any sense that he would do that. And he might need to change the scenery. They might need a change of player. And yeah, I think it's over for the Heat and the Heat culture that they have built over the last few years. Two more thoughts on the East. Tyrese Halliburton has fallen off. And I know that sounds weird to say, because, you see him and you think, hey, his numbers are kind of comparable to what they were last year. But when you watch the games, he's just shooting worse. He is not as dynamic as he was a year ago. And it just seems like he is not the same player we saw in the stretch in the in-season tournament game, where he was like making us think like, wait, is he one of the best players in the league? And he's kind of just not been as good as what we were accustomed or what we thought we were going to get from him. So that's been disappointing. And on the other side, the Hawks have been probably one of the more fun, dysfunctional teams in the entire league, as they have a lot of shooting, they have a lot of athletes, a lot of potential. They're raw and they are a team that's a year away from being a year away, and they're kind of just stuck. But they have enough talent to kind of be a fun watch and a competitive watch on any given day, and that's what makes them such a weird team to evaluate. I feel like they gave Quinn Snyder, who he's the coach, and they kind of gave him a large reign over the team, and I just think they gave it maybe to the wrong guy. Quinn Snyder's a fine coach. I just don't know if I would want him to be the end-all, be-all decider of my roster. Don't know. I like that. Let's go to the West. The Thunder are playing the best basketball in the West. But don't tell the Rockets that, because the Rockets have been phenomenal as well. Ime Udoka is a fantastic coach. And we knew that. But I just got to tell you, he's a fantastic coach. And the Rockets are doing this with a team that is filled with guys that can play. And you might say, why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem because there's only a limited amount of minutes. And the Rockets are a team that's able to make a move for a player, 3-for-1 type of deal, where they get a real piece back. Now, if you're the Rockets, you want to be very careful with this, because you just don't want to go in for like a Jimmy Butler just for the sake of having Jimmy Butler on your team. You want to be strategic. You want to be smart, because Ime Udoka has this team playing just like he wants them to. He has this team buying in. He has this team doing exactly the things that he has implemented, and they're tough, and they're competitive, and I like that about this Rockets team. But if you just go in and bring in a Jimmy Butler just because he's a name, you might ruin this whole thing. So they're 15-6. They're playing awesome ball, as well as the Thunder. The Thunder are like an older, more mature version of the Rockets, with a solidified superstar, with just the guys that are complimenting him. And the Rockets, I think that should be the model, where you assign who is your SGA, or you realize who is your SGA, and then you build around him. The Grizzlies have been a revelation over the last few weeks. Now, for the Grizzlies, we are not surprised, because this team a few years ago was like the number 2 seed in the league, or in the West. So we're not surprised by that. It's just happy to see this team kind of get back to what they used to be. John Morant looks like he's all the way back, and we hope that he's able to stay off all the crazy stuff, because he's a phenomenal basketball player. They have they have a great story in Scottie Pippen Jr., who's been balling out, and he is the complete opposite of Bronny, where he's actually good and earning his keep in the league. The Warriors have fallen off ever since their hot start. They've lost 4 straight. They're 12-7, and it was just not going to be sustainable for them to keep the pace that they had. Steve Kerr was playing like 9-10 guys, which isn't suitable for success in the NBA, and so they've kind of came back down to earth a little bit. The Mavericks are playing well. The Lakers are playing fine with their team, and JJ Redick is doing a phenomenal job still and I'll continue to say that because it's if you watch the Lakers day in and day out, you know that there's a gigantic difference between him and Darvin Ham. And I know that if you just look at stats and records, you say, well, the records are similar. But it's not just the record, it's how the team looks day to day, and that looks different. The Nuggets are kind of treading water, and they lose tonight versus the Clippers, and it's just a weird team, It's a weird team where Jokic is still the best player in basketball, but just everything around him is much, much worse. And just doesn't seem like it's conducive to winning basketball. And I wonder if they would make a trade because Jokic is in win now mode to kind of get rid of MPJ or shake things up a little bit. The Suns and Clippers and are two teams that are heading in two different directions, kind of, in terms of like the bigger picture. The Clippers are surviving without Kawhi, who's presumably out for the year. The Clippers have perhaps returned to the future, to the past, not the future, with James Harden and how he's playing. But it's a team that is well coached. They have a good coach, and things are working out for them because of that. They are competitive most nights. They have a good offense, and they do enough defensively to get by. Now they struggle against the younger, super athletic teams like the Rockets and the Thunder. But they are a solid team who's going to be in play for the playing game, but that is a lot better than what we thought they were going to be. And the Suns, on the other end, are a team that is better coached because the offense is better. It's just a better fit for their guys. I just don't know. I just don't know how good this team can be, when they're so reliant on their top guys. And it's a team that if KD and Booker are not on, and I mean like on, they can't win. And that's what makes it tough for this Phoenix Suns team, because there's almost no margin for error for them. And that's where it becomes difficult, because they have enough talent their top end talent is as good as anybody, but it's just everywhere else. That roster is so thin that it's just hard to imagine this team being able to, over the course of a playoff run, do much. And it's why they're going different directions, because the Clippers, their roster's good. I like their pieces. They just don't have reliable top-end talent. And so it seems like a team that's going to be able to add some of that over the next few years or so. So that's where they're going in different directions. I'll end it with the T-Wolves, who made the Western Conference Finals. We were thinking this is a year. Maybe they make the leap. And they've kind of sucked. And the trade has been awful for them. And Randall is doing Julius Randle things. You had Ant already call him out and call him soft. And it just a weird or a tough look for this T-Wolves team, who went from having all the chemistry to none of it went from being super competitive and super physical to having none of it. And as they sit now, they are the 11th seed. They're 9-10, and things have not looked great. And things are far from over, and they can still make a run, and they probably will, and they'll probably be in the top 5 when it's all said and done. But it's just bad start for them, and bad. It's just been a bad for the vibes. If you're just all about the vibes, their vibes have been off all year long. I wanted to add one more thing. I know that the Sixers are playing for the finals. I know that's what Joel Embiid said. They're 4-14 though, and we're heading December 1st. And this team is going to have to go on a run eventually if they're going to want to catch up. Now, what's good news for them is they're playing the East, and they don't have to do much, or they don't have a huge hurdle to climb out of. But things are getting late, and they're getting late fast for them if they don't get their act together. And on the other side, the Pelicans, who have been extremely disappointing. Zion, we thought maybe this is the year he gets healthy. Those damn pictures fooled us again. And they're 4-17, and I'm bringing this up because for some of these teams, we'll get to December, we'll get to January, and then some of these teams are going to have to make a decision about Cooper Flag and the draft that's ahead, because it's a really good draft, and some of these teams are going to decide, we'll pull the plug on it. The Pelicans, the Jazz, the Blazers, the Kings. Man, maybe even someone like the Nuggets would do that. The Spurs shouldn't. You got Wemby. Try to win. That's what you should do. And in the East, it just seems the Wizards, the Raptors, Hornets, Bulls, Pistons are all in. And eventually the Sixers are going to have to decide, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with our season? So that's where I'm with the NBA. Let's kick it a little bit, yeah? In England, we've had almost like a return to how things used to be in England with Manchester City and and how bad they've looked. So Man City has gone their last 5. They haven't won their last 5 games, which is crazy. They lose today versus Liverpool 2-0. On Tuesday, they were up 3-0 to Feyenoord, and they tied at home 3-3, which feels like a loss. Last Saturday, they lost 4-0 to Tottenham. The Saturday before that, or the week before that, they lost to Brighton 2-1. They lost to Sporting 4-1. And so all of a sudden, you begin to look at this team, and you're saying, "Whoa, what is going on? What is happening?" The last time they won in the English Premier was October 26th versus Southampton at home. So it's been a rough time for Pep as he's scratching himself and putting himself through a tough time. And if you're not a Man City fan like myself, this has been pretty great. But they've dropped a bunch of points. They're up 23. They're 5th in the league. And this happens. There's seasons where teams kind of get tired and the message gets a little long, and it happens. I think Man City will be okay in the grand scheme of things. They have too much talent. They have a good coach. Stuff like this happens. It happens. Happened to Liverpool a few years ago. It just happens. It's kind of happening to Real Madrid right now. It happens sometimes. Now, Liverpool is playing really, really great. and really, really well. They won 4 of their last 5, and even their fifth one, they tied it. So they've been playing really good football. They beat Real Madrid this week in the Champions League. They're up in the league by 9 over Arsenal, who's been inconsistently consistent. And I think a good story for this season has been Chelsea, who has played fairly well over the course of the year. They stand at third. And it just seems like this is going to be a season where everybody plays for European position, and because Liverpool is running away with the league. Now, to my beloved Manchester United, who beat Everton 4-0, who we look like there's new life in us, and it looks like we are approaching a brand new place in time for our team. Ruben Amorim has been awesome for us, and I did a whole thing on him last week, so I won't rehash it. And it's still too early. Manchester United still has growing pains that we're gonna have to go through. But we're 9th. We're 19 points. Anything can happen. But just super excited to be a Manchester United fan in these very moments. Let's go to Spain. Real Madrid. They won 2-0 in a game that was very important versus Getafe. Barcelona dropped points again. Last 3 games, they dropped points in the league. And now Real Madrid is within 1 with a game behind. Things are looking up. Now, during the week, Real Madrid lost to Liverpool in the Champions League. And they're making it tough on themselves, and it's kind of becoming it's becoming just a different team all around when it comes to the Champions League and all that. And they are right now in the qualifications, and there's 3 games left, and so I mean they'll be able to kind of climb up to the automatic qualifications of it, hopefully. But it's been it's been a season of frustration for Real Madrid. It's been a season of where this team, and I say both teams because in terms of like Europe and Spain, it's a team that it seems like 2 different teams altogether. And in Europe, they're not getting up for those games, and it's weird. And I think a lot of it is overthinking and injuries and guys that have never played together, and I think that matters. And I think it's easy to say a name and say, well, they're going to be fine because they play together, and that's just not how sports work. And it's going to take time for Mbappe to kind of get acclimated in Real Madrid. And I know I saw somebody was saying that this is like Hazard, and I was like, pump the brakes. Hazard was done by the time he left Chelsea. Mbappe is just struggling. Like, let's take it easy. But I think it does speak to the roster construction in Real Madrid, and I think these players need more help in terms of the depth of the roster, and we'll see if Real Madrid is willing to do that in January. Now, I do think, though, that they're playing way too many games now, and these guys are being kind of ran into the ground, and that does affect the type of football we're getting. That's everybody, and Real Madrid is the one losing, so it might not even be a valuable excuse. But in Spain, Barcelona's up 34-33. They're playing not so hot, but they're fine in Champions League. Atletico is always there, and they're playing up to their standards, and they're third place. And Girona, who was a great story last year, is just okay this year. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at with football. So one last thing, I wanted to hit on Vini, who was out, who hadn't played, who didn't play this week. And Vini's been very vocal about just his time in Spain and how the racism and how he's treated and all that. And I'm not saying Vini deserves it, because I'm definitely not saying that. But I do think there is a level of ownership that one has to take when you are constantly talking, you're constantly criticizing, you're constantly complaining about stuff. And when that happens, you get under people's skin, and people expose themselves when they are angry and frustrated. And that's what's happened with Vini. And I think there are times where he does too much, and you see it even with his teammates, where they kind of trying to reel him back in. And I think it doesn't excuse anyone's behavior, but I think when you're playing at the highest level and you're competing to achieve giant goals, you can be a victim, but at the same time you can be the instigator. And I think Vini has been both the victim and the instigator at certain times in his career so far. And I think it's good for him, it's good for the club, if he were to look inside and realize it's both. I'm both the victim and the instigator, and maybe I shouldn't be an instigator, so that the victim stuff and can be louder. Because right now he'll say, hey, they're doing this or they're doing that, or this hurts me because they're treating me this way. And the response on the other side is, well, yeah, look how you're acting. And if Vini were to take advice from the book of Peter, he'd kind of see that the racism stuff would be even more highlighted. And so that's I wanted to touch on that, because I think it's important. Final thought. My final thought today is snow games are really, really awesome aesthetically, and we should have more of those. Mother Nature, Lord, somebody, send us more snow games. They look fun. That's my final thought. I'll talk to you on Wednesday with Christian Worldview Wednesdays. So I'll talk to you then. Hold on. Before I close the pod, Cruz Azul was down 3-0. Down 3-0. And I didn't think we were going to come back, because that's not the story of Cruz Azul. We are the ones that allow the comebacks, not the ones that make the comebacks. But we came back on Tijuana, 3-3. We advance. And our prize, America. And so I was super ecstatic that we won yesterday. And now we get America on Wednesday and Saturday. And should be a lot of fun to see the Máquina continue on this journey. So I wanted to end with that. Shout out to La Máquina for that. So we remembered there was a Liga, and we stepped up and won. So with that, I'll talk to you on Wednesday. Okay, that's the pod. And I will talk to you on Wednesday for Christian Worldview Wednesdays. And I wanted to thank Angel. I wanted to thank Triumph. And I want to thank you for listening. You can listen to this pod anywhere you get your pods. So please rate, review, and subscribe anywhere you get your pods. And you can follow us on Instagram at Arrows Up on Instagram. And so I'll talk to you later. And Niners suffered a tough defeat. CMC tore PCL out for the year. And sad day for a 49er fan. But Lakers won. Real Madrid won. Man U won. Cruz Azul won. Ohio State lost. It was a good weekend all in all. Anyway, I'll talk to you Later. Viva la máquina. Glory, glory, Man United. Hala Madrid. Let's go, Lakers. And just 5 more weeks of this. Very sad. Bang, bang. Niner gang. The Heroes of Podcast is brought to you by Triumph Protective Coatings, which is a flooring company specializing in concrete polish, epoxy flooring systems, micro cement, and self-leveling concrete. They speak Spanish and they offer awesome customer service. And you could reach them on Instagram, Triumph_Coatings. Looking them up on Facebook, Triumph Protective Coatings. You can email them, triumphprotectivecoatings@gmail.com. You can call them or text them at 666-436-4702. And if you use promo code ARROWSUP, you get 15% off on your next flooring project. So reach out to them and they will take care of all your flooring needs.